Howdy folks, welcome back. This is the third episode of in the Titanium series. And today I have for you a George VECP. George, I would consider one of the most trendiest knife makers right now. Every single model this guy puts out, at least from his own designs, sells out instantly. There's a couple out there that are collaborations with other knife makers or people in the knife industry that are still available. And I'll actually touch on that towards the end of this review as I offer you some options for the next review. I'll also leave some links so you can learn a little about George and the different models he offers. My story, from a personal use standpoint, I unfortunately haven't got too much use out of this. I think that's one of the symptoms when you have more than enough knives in your collection. So that's not a humble brag. I feel like it's actually a obstacle in being able to enjoy your knives. It is fidgety though, because you can flick it out, you can slow roll it, and have it drop down with a push of a button. I actually took this one apart just to check out the internals. And I personally think it's not the easiest knife to maintain in terms of putting it back together. You have to be careful about the spring so that way components don't pop off when you're trying to reassemble the knife. Let's take a look at some measurements. All right, so the entire length of the blade is coming in slightly above 8 1/4 inches. The blade is just shy of 4 inches with a cutting edge that's closer to 3.5 inches. And the handle itself is coming in shy of 5 inches. Let's see how much this guy weighs. Oh wait, a second. Oh no. Let's try that again. Apologies guys and girls. A little over 5 1/4 ounces. This one's got some weight on it. I consider that still very manageable though, just because it's not gonna weigh your pants down as you're carrying it, and definitely gives you enough heft so that way you feel and experience the knife in your hand. All right, let's talk about the blade. So this particular variation has a Chad Nichols Damascus blade. And I'll throw in some links about Damascus blades, but essentially it is a steel that's been hammered over and over again to create these designs in the blade. They are beautiful, in my opinion. The thing is about Damascus blades is, at least from my understanding, multiple steels can be used, so it's hard to determine the toughness, edge retention, and corrosion resistance of Damascus blades. I simply don't have a great understanding of it, so I definitely don't want to misinform anyone that's watching this review. This uses a full flat grind, so Once it hits the swedge right here, it just comes straight down. It's very sharp right off the box. I have used it to do some food prep, such as slicing up apples, strawberries. I have not yet been able to cut up a steak, which is, as you'll continue to watch reviews of mine, that's something I enjoy doing with my knives. This uses a button lock for the closing mechanism. So the opening mechanisms are just thumb studs. It's on both sides of the blade and actually comes out very easily. And they've actually drilled holes for the pocket clip. So this is very ambidextrous friendly. If you're a left-hander, you can switch the clip to this side and have no worries about opening and closing with your left hand. Okay, let's talk about the handle. This particular design is called the Morph. And as you can see, as the design continues down the handle, it gets wider and larger. This is a very popular design of his. The handle itself is titanium, very durable. This is actually in a DLC, diamond-like carbon coating, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It reminds me of a glossy gunmetal. And back to the lock again, lock type. This is a button lock. So as you can see in there, as you depress the button, it pushes it in because as it's sticking out, the blade catches onto it. So as soon as you depress it, it allows the blade to drop freely. The ergonomics on this is beyond impressive. As soon as you grip it, in the hammer grip, even in the saber grip, this, even though it looks like the pocket clip sticks up a bit right here, it doesn't actually create any hot spots. This feels amazing in hand. And why that's important is because if you're using a knife for a long duration, having hot spots is the last thing you want to worry about. Now, obviously, if you have just been using knives for a long time, you'll develop calluses in your hand where hot spots isn't really a concern. But I would say the majority of us who aren't regular knife users would prefer more comfort as you're gripping the knife, regardless of how long they're planning to use the blade. All right, let's talk about the pocket clip. So this is not a deep carry pocket clip. It is tipped down, so as you're holding it, again, the tip is facing up. So, I'm sorry, this is tip up. The retention strength on this is, if I was to give it on a scale from 1 to 5, this is definitely around a 4. So there is a bit of stiffness to it. All right, let's take a look at it in the pocket. All right, there. So this is the amount of knife that's sticking out. Gives you great grip on it as you're pulling it out, retrieving it. In terms of the real estate, it takes up a little bit more than the Chris Reeve knives I've reviewed, but enough room for you to slip your hand into the pocket if need be. I'm pretty sure this is a titanium pocket clip. Go. Let's talk about availability and price point. So this particular model is, given the Damascus blade and the DLC on the handle, this will run about $600. Availability Well, they are scarce as well. George does sell these direct, but you're more likely to obtain one of these from one of his online authorized retailers. However, when they drop, they sell out instantly. Referring back to how I started this review, George is one of the most popular and trendiest knife makers right now. And I don't mean to use the word trendy in nothing but positive applications. He has been in the knife game for a while, and his designs are amazing. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for George and his knife designs. He makes some amazing and very creative, very applicable and practical designs in his knives. Forgot to mention, there is some jimping on the blade right here. It's not very frictional. I mean, they're not entirely that effective, but it gives you a little bit of grip because you'll notice it as you're gripping up with your thumb. But there are more aggressive jimping on different models from different knife makers and brands. But this works. My final thoughts. I believe you should try the George. If you can get your hands on one, they have other variations of this model where it's a stonewashed, plain Jane titanium that's not DLC'd. The blade is stonewashed with what he's currently using is the CPM MagnaCut. So you're getting the top of line steel with very high corrosion resistance, high toughness. And if you can find those models are about $450 when they drop. So definitely worth it if you're able to get your hands on one, especially if you're venturing into a price point in between the $400 and $500 range. And I've interacted with George. I actually have one of his other models where I was missing one of the hardware screws right here. He reached out. He was very cordial about it. He apologized for the inconvenience and was able to send me a replacement hardware screw within a week. So great guy to communicate with. It's the little things like that that make me respect a knife maker. Not too often you may find knife makers who are, over their head with how amazing they think their knives are. They're not as responsive. They treat their consumers with less customer service oriented dialogue than some. But I would say most knife makers are very respectful and cordial to their customers. And George is definitely one of them. So I highly recommend it. Not only are his knives amazing, especially this model, the VECP, but also the fact that he seems to be a very genuine and overall cordial individual. I will call this a user. Maybe not the Damascus, only because they are more rare. People like to preserve these. I personally will use the knife regardless of how rare or whatever the case may be. So I believe this would be a very good user. Again, if you venture into this price point around the $400 to $500 range, I think it would be, I believe it's a must-have. And so, yeah. We got a couple other models I want to present for the next review. I would love to hear your feedback, which one you want to see. And they both just happen to be collaborations with George. So this top one right here is Alan Elishewitz and George. They did a collaboration, and this is the EK Intergral folder. This one, the Defiant 7, it's called Servo, And this is a collaboration between Les George and Chad Nichols. All right, if you guys have enjoyed the review, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to get notified for the next one. Leave any comments you have about improvements. I just want to make sure that I'm getting the most effective review out there for everyone and not to waste anyone's time. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend when it starts, and stay frosty.